strategic electronic sourcing modules. So these are, let's say, little software packages that can be added into an enterprise resource planning software for your company. And depending on your needs, you can pick and choose on these. So some strategic modules that you may want to add to your application suite is electronic sourcing and reverse auctions, maybe a spend analysis package, supplier performance management, and contract management. All of these would be extremely useful to include, but of course, every module comes with a price. So you need to really understand what it does and how your company would benefit from it. So if you don't do, for example, performance management for your suppliers, you might not want to pay for that. But you may want to consider starting something, and then when you get to a certain level, then get it. So you might be able to negotiate some pricing for future modules when you do your initial contract with your supplier. So let's take a look at some pricing that you might see in an online bid if you use one of these systems. So here's a chart where bidding opened at 10 a.m. and it looks like it closed at just after 10:45. So companies would bid on the contract. And sometimes you can enable it where they can see the other company's bids. And you can see here that it started off with $25 million shortly after 10 a.m. But when it was all said and done, roughly what appears to be about 10:40, the price came down from 25 million all the way down to 17 million and change. So we had our open time period. They were given 30 minutes to place their bids. The system gave them overtime, so they were able to put maybe their final and best bids. And then maybe there was a little bit of time to review, and then it finally closed. Well, this is one way to do your bidding for your contracts. But what about using reverse auctions? So here we have the same thing from 10 a.m. and it goes to what it looks like 11 a.m. But the price dropped from, let's say, $97,000 all the way down to roughly $70,000. And that happened over the period of 1 hour. But it looks like at 11 a.m. that was the scheduled close time. But because there was so many bids, it looks like an auto extension was given where it finally closed shortly after 11 a.m. But that's a huge savings. That's saving $25,000 using this reverse auction. And you saved, let's say, that $25,000 in just over an hour. I'll take it. Because imagine if this was a bigger contract and it was $95 million and you were able to bring it down to $70 million. So $25 million saved in an hour, just over an hour. Go for it. All right, so we have some myths of reverse auctions. So how can we avoid these? Well, reverse auctions are only about a price. Well, that's not true. There's other aspects. So when we get to a reverse auction, I might be looking at all the aspects of, let's say, the final bidders. You know, the best price of every bidder that was out there. And I'm going to look at them. It might be that I'm looking at, you know, are they guaranteeing next day delivery? Are they guaranteeing a warranty of their products? Is there something else that makes that one stand out that might be worth spending a little bit more? And another myth is reverse auctions only work for commodities. So you're buying things in bulk. And you might be sourcing iron. You might be sourcing aluminum. You might be sourcing rock or soil. You know, all these different things. It's not just for that. You can use it for anything you want. And then reverse auctions hurt the buyer-supplier relationship. I don't think it does. I've never seen it hurt that relationship. because suppliers realize that you're trying to get the best price, and they're not going to hold that against you. But they can also see where their competitors are at in pricing. That could be valuable information for them. And then it says here, savings will decrease over time. It won't. You're going to be sourcing so many different things that by the time you come around to sourcing that one thing for the second time, the companies want to charge their, let's say that 95,000. But after all the bidding, it gets back down to $75,000. Well, yes, the savings decreased, but it also could go down to $65,000. Could go to $60,000 or $50,000. So it's not true that savings will decrease over time. And reverse auctions are not a passing fad. It's not a race to the bottom. They're very valuable and they've been used for years because you want to get the best price for your company. But the best price is not all of it. It's like the first one said, the myth is that it's only about price. It's not. It's about getting the best value for your money. So they're not a passing fad. And if anything, they're increasing in use. It's increasing in use. So while we have all these auctions, well, what happens after the auction? Well, we need to do a contract, right? So let's look at the life cycle of a contract. So right at the top, at the 12 o'clock position for our contract lifecycle management, we request a contract, right? So we do that. So the contract gets written and then it's presented and we negotiate it. And then you might have to get some approvals. You might have to send it over to the legal department because they might have wrote it, but the negotiations might have modified it a little, so you need to get it reviewed again. And then finally, once everybody's happy, you sign the thing. You execute the contract. And then after a period of time, you might have to renew the contract. Well, when you renew it, you want to audit, make sure that contract was complied with, and look at other things. And if there's any revisions that need to be done to the contract, make them. And then we'll start the process again. So we're requesting the contract with the revisions, so it gets written again, and we can go through it all. And that's the contract lifecycle management. It's not difficult. It's pretty simple. I mean, when the contract expires, just like if you were in an apartment, your lease expires, you have to renew it, or you choose to move somewhere else. Well, the landlord might evaluate if they want to have you as a tenant still. So they're going to audit what they did. If they had to do so many maintenance calls on the apartment, they might want you out so they can do an overhaul to that apartment. And they might revise that contract to have a rent increase. Or maybe there's something else, like they want to put no pets. All these things they can do in a revision. And then you get to that negotiation. Yes, you can negotiate the rental fee, or the rental amount that you'll be paying every month. Yes, you can negotiate it. But it's not a common practice. So you got to see what it is. Maybe you can talk them out of charging you a certain fee, like a lease renewal fee. Maybe you can talk them out of that. It's a negotiation, right? You don't know unless you ask. And then you go through the cycle again and again and again as many times as you need to. So that's contract lifecycle management. So let's look at the operational side of electronic sourcing in our next video. So let's go ahead and move on to that one right now.